My family filed false child protection claims that I was mentally ill and unfit to bear children, but they didn't expect a social worker to expose their lies in court. I'm 26 weeks pregnant with my first child, and my entire family has turned against me because of my baby's name. This situation has spiraled so out of control that I need an outside perspective because I can't figure out if I'm being unreasonable or if my family is crazy. My name is Emily, and I'm 25 years old. I'm married to Ryan, a 28-year-old man. We've been together for 4 years, married for 2. We were overjoyed when we found out we were expecting a girl. Ryan and I spent weeks looking through baby name books and the internet. We finally settled on Sophia Grace. Sophia, because we both liked the sound of it, traditional yet modern, and Grace in honor of Ryan's late aunt, who helped raise him when his parents divorced. We announced the name to both our families about a month ago, and that's when things went awry. My mother, Margaret, 60, has been obsessed with family rituals for as long as I can remember. She comes from a large Irish Catholic family where names are passed down through generations. When we told her about Sophia Grace, her expression completely changed. She waited a few seconds before asking if we'd considered naming the baby Eleanor, after my grandmother, who died 3 years ago. I need to tell you something about my grandmother, Eleanor. Everyone in our family talks about her as if she were a saint. She lived to be 85 and should have been a matriarch who held everyone together. However, Eleanor wasn't the wonderful grandmother everyone remembers. Eleanor babysat my younger brother, Liam, 22, when our parents went away on weekends or during school holidays, from the time I was 7 until I was almost 16. Eleanor had extremely strict standards for the children's behavior. If Liam or I made noise while she was watching television, she would lock us in the basement pantry. It wasn't just for a few minutes. Sometimes we spent hours there. The pantry was dark and smelled of rotting vegetables. There were no windows and the door was very heavy. Liam was younger than me, so he cried, which irritated Eleanor even more when she finally let us out. During these babysitting sessions, Eleanor often withheld food from us as punishment for what she considered rude behavior. If we asked for a snack before dinner or didn't sit absolutely still during her soap operas, she sent us to bed hungry. She convinced our parents that we had eaten enough and were just being greedy. Our parents always believed her. The worst part was the way Eleanor spoke to us when our parents weren't around. She called Liam stupid because he had difficulty reading when he was younger. She told me I was gaining weight and that no guy would ever want to marry me if I continued to eat so much. Those words haunted me for years. Even now, I hear her voice when I look in the mirror. When Eleanor grew old and moved into a nursing home, our family visited her every few weeks. Everyone commented on how wonderful she was and how much they missed her. I sat silently, knowing that if I mentioned how my mother treated Liam and me, no one would believe me. Eleanor seemed like the perfect grandmother, baking cookies and knitting sweaters. After Eleanor died, my mother began to talk about her even more. She said Eleanor was the center of our family and that she taught us all respect and tradition. Last year, my mother got Eleanor's name tattooed in cursive on her wrist. Every holiday, she posts photos of Eleanor on social media with captions about how much she misses her advice and wisdom. So when my mother suggested naming my daughter after Eleanor, I quickly declined. I mentioned that Ryan and I had already chosen Sophia Grace and were happy with our decision. My mother became more forceful and declared it would be selfish of me not to honor Eleanor's memory. She said Eleanor would have preferred her great-granddaughter to bear her name. Over the next few weeks, my mother repeatedly mentioned Eleanor's name. Every phone call, text message, and visit boiled down to the point that I should reconsider my decision. She started emailing me old photos of Eleanor with my relatives and anecdotes about how Eleanor had helped her through difficult times when I was a child. My father, Charles, 56, initially stayed out of the discussion, but eventually began to support my mother. He talked about respecting elders and maintaining family ties. He reminded me that Eleanor had left me some jewelry in her will, demonstrating how much she loved me. He didn't realize that Eleanor had left me the jewelry only because she had bequeathed comparable gifts to all her granddaughters. It wasn't because of a special connection. The situation escalated 3 weeks ago at my baby shower. My mother planned the entire celebration at our local community center. About 32 people attended, including aunts, cousins, relatives, friends, and several of my coworkers. Everything was going well until my mother stood up to give a speech. She began by thanking everyone for attending and expressing her excitement about becoming a grandmother. Then she expressed her desire for everyone to join her in urging me to consider a more traditional name for the baby. She stated that Eleanor was a very important part of our family, and it would be wonderful if her name were passed on to her great-granddaughter. I noticed people looking at me expectantly. Some of my older relatives nodded as my mother spoke. My cousin Julia, 31, remarked that Eleanor would be pleased to hear that the new baby would have her name. I stepped up and stated unequivocally that the baby's name was Sophia Grace, and that Ryan and I would not change our minds. My mother's smile instantly vanished. She accused me of being stubborn and insensitive to others' feelings. She said Eleanor had done so much for our family and that this was a simple way to honor her memory. When I confirmed that our decision was final, my mother's voice grew stronger. She declared me impolite and ungrateful. At that moment, the entire room fell silent. My baby shower had devolved into a public squabble over my grandmother's name. I saw people looking unsure and whispering among themselves. I sat down and tried to change the subject, but my mother didn't finish. She said we'd talk about it later and hoped I'd calm down before the baby was born. The rest of the baby shower felt strange. People were nice, but it was obvious they were discussing what had happened. Some of my relatives left earlier than expected, and some approached me personally to say they understood my situation, but advised me to try to mend my relationship with my mother. Since the baby shower, things have gotten significantly worse. My mother contacts me several times a day to discuss the name dilemma. My father started showing up at my house when Ryan was at work to have long conversations about family loyalties and traditions. My brother Liam writes to me that I should just give in because fighting with our parents isn't worth the stress of pregnancy. My Aunt Teresa, a 48-year-old woman, visited my office last week. She approached me during lunch and said my mother was in despair over the name dilemma. She explained that Eleanor had always been proud of me, and that using her name would help keep her spirit alive in our family. When I told Teresa I have terrible memories of Eleanor, she suggested I must be misremembering because I was young at the time. The most annoying thing is that no one in my family listens when I try to explain why I don't want to use Eleanor's name. They either change the subject or suggest I focus on the pleasant memories instead of holding grudges. My 32-year-old cousin Nathan told me that Eleanor belonged to a different generation and that I shouldn't judge her by today's standards. Yesterday, my mother attended my doctor's appointment. She explained that she wanted to be there to hear the baby's heartbeat and had brought a significant other with her. When I entered the waiting room, Eleanor's younger sister Beatrice, 78, was sitting with my parents. Beatrice had driven 3 hours to attend this appointment. My mother added that she thought it would be meaningful for Beatrice to hear her great-granddaughter's heartbeat, especially if the baby might be named Eleanor. Beatrice started talking about how Eleanor had always wanted more children and how she would love to have a great-granddaughter named after her. When I repeated that the baby's name was Sophia Grace, Beatrice seemed puzzled. She said my mother had told her I was considering Eleanor as a name. My mother quickly informed me that we were still discussing it and that I needed more time to think about it. I left the appointment without letting anyone hear my heartbeat. I drove straight home and called Ryan at work. When I told him what had happened, he suggested setting stricter boundaries with my family. He suggested writing a letter expressing our final choice and encouraging everyone to stick to it. But I'm worried that a letter will only make things worse. My family has made it clear that this is more than just a disagreement over a baby's name. They see this as a test of how much I respect our family's values and traditions. I know that if I continue to refuse, they will see it as me choosing my own preferences, rather than what they believe is right. At the same time, I can't bring myself to name my child after Eleanor. Every time I think about naming my child that, I remember being locked in a basement storage room and told I was big and useless. I don't want my child to inherit the name of the person who caused me so much suffering, even if other people have fond memories of that person. I'm running out of time to resolve this issue. The baby is due in 12 weeks, and the stress in my family is only mounting. I'm unsure whether I should stick to Sophia Grace and risk irreversibly damaging my relationship with my parents and family, or whether I should consider a compromise that works for everyone. Has anyone else experienced family pressure over baby names? How did you cope when your family insisted on memorializing someone you didn't have fond memories of? I desperately need help because this situation is harming my health and my marriage, and I don't know what to do next. I replied that I would name her Sophia Grace. I wish I could say everything ended well, but in reality, it got worse before it got better. I went into labor prematurely at 35 weeks, 2 weeks after my last post. I wish I could say everything ended well, but in reality, it got worse before it got better. I went into labor prematurely at 35 weeks, 2 weeks after my last post. Ryan took me to the hospital where Sophia Grace was born healthy, weighing 5 pounds, 3 ounces. On the first day, everything seemed perfect. Ryan and I were tired but excited. And Sophia was doing well in the neonatal intensive care unit as a precaution due to her premature birth. On the second day, a nurse informed me that several people had called the hospital asking about me and the baby. My mother, father, Teresa, and cousin Julia had all called me. They asked about Sophia's health and visiting hours. I hadn't contacted any of them when I went into labor because I wanted to rest and spend time with Sophia before dealing with family issues. That same day, my mother and father arrived at the hospital unannounced. They figured out which room I was in and walked right in while I was trying to breastfeed Sophia. My mother immediately ran to Sophia's crib and started taking pictures of her on her phone. She marveled and exclaimed how beautiful her granddaughter Eleanor was. I corrected her, saying the baby's name was Sophia Grace. My mother laughed and said I'd come to terms with it when I realized how fitting the name Eleanor was for such a beautiful child. She said Sophia looked exactly like Eleanor in her baby photos and that it was clearly fate. My father stood by the door as if guarding it. He said they were sick with fear when they found out I'd given birth without telling them. He said family members should be the first to know about these important events and that I'd hurt their feelings by excluding them. I asked them to leave because I was exhausted and still recovering from the birth. My mother explained that they'd driven an hour to the hospital and deserved time with their granddaughter. She took Sophia from her crib without asking and began carrying her around the room. When I tried to pick her up, my mother told me I was being too possessive and that grandparents have rights too. She said Eleanor would want her to be involved in raising her great-granddaughter and that I couldn't keep Sophia away from the family members who loved her. At that moment, Ryan returned from getting coffee in the cafeteria. Noticing my mother holding Sophia and my father blocking the door, he immediately asked them to leave. He explained that we had requested privacy for the first few days as new parents, and that they should respect our wishes. My mother claimed that Ryan was pitting me against my own family and was the reason I was so stubborn about the name. She said that if Ryan truly valued family traditions, he would encourage me to honor Eleanor's memory rather than promote my own family's names. Ryan snatched Sophia from my mother and told the nurse to call security. He said we hadn't invited them to the hospital and that they were creating stress during what should have been a peaceful time. My parents left, but before they did, my mother declared that it wasn't over and that they would find a way to stay in touch with their granddaughter, Eleanor, whether I liked it or not. The next day, Ms. Patel, the social worker, visited my room. She explained that the hospital had received a call expressing concern about my mental health and ability to care for Sophia. The caller said I was suffering from postpartum depression and had paranoid thoughts about my family members. Ms. Patel added that she was required to conduct a welfare check when the hospital received such calls. She asked me about my support system, my mental health history, and my plans for Sophia's care after discharge. She also inquired about my family relationships and whether I was experiencing conflict with my relatives. I told Ms. Patel about the pressure I was experiencing from my family regarding Sophia's name and that they had come to the hospital without permission. I emphasized that I did not have postpartum depression, but I was concerned about my family's behavior. Ms. Patel stated that the caller had provided accurate information about my supposed mental health issues. They claimed that I was refusing to allow family members to see the baby and was making unreasonable decisions regarding her care. They also claimed that my husband was encouraging this behavior by isolating me from my caregivers. After talking with me for about an hour, Ms. Patel declared that she saw no evidence of the problems mentioned during the phone call. She described me as a capable young mother coping with normal family stress. In her report, she stated that no further intervention was necessary. 2 days later, Sophia and I were discharged from the hospital. Ryan invited his sister, Lauren, 31, to live with us for the first week to help with cooking and cleaning. Lauren lives 4 hours away and took time off from work to be with us. On our third day home, my Aunt Teresa showed up at our door with my cousin Nathan and his wife, Rachel, 27. They expressed concern for me and wanted to make sure I was properly caring for Sophia. Teresa said my mother was worried because I hadn't answered phone calls or text messages. The thing was, Ryan and I had decided to turn off our phones for a few days to focus on adjusting to life with a newborn. We were both tired and overwhelmed and didn't want to deal with family conflict while learning how to care for Sophia. Teresa brushed past Ryan as he opened the door and walked into our living room. She said she needed to personally make sure Sophia was healthy and eating well. Nathan and Rachel followed her inside, despite Ryan's warning that now was not a good time for guests. Lauren was cooking dinner in the kitchen when they arrived. Teresa immediately began questioning her about who she was and why she was in our house. When Lauren explained that she was Ryan's sister and helping us during our first week at home, Teresa insisted that support should come from family members, not strangers. Teresa went upstairs to our bedroom, where Sophia was sleeping in her crib. She woke Sophia, lifting her up and examining her as if she were a doctor. She commented on Sophia's thin appearance and asked when she had last eaten. Teresa expressed concern that Sophia's hourly feedings might not be enough for a developing baby. Nathan took photos of our house with his phone, including Sophia's nursery, our kitchen, and the living room. When Ryan asked why he was taking photos, Nathan explained that he wanted to document Sophia's living conditions in case any issues arose later regarding her care. Rachel began asking me detailed questions about my daily routine with Sophia. She wanted to know how often I fed her, how much sleep I got, and whether I was taking any drugs. When I asked why she needed this information, she explained that my mother was concerned about my ability to cope with the challenges of parenthood. After they left, Ryan and I knew this visit had been more than just a check-in. They were gathering information and documenting the state of our home. Ryan called his sister Lauren and ordered her to write down everything that happened during the visit, including the questions asked and the photographs Nathan took. That night, Ryan's phone rang at 2 in the morning. Linda, his 58-year-old mother, lives in another state. Linda said she'd received a call from a strange man claiming to be my mother. The caller said I was suffering from severe postpartum depression and that Ryan was encouraging my mental health issues. Linda said my mother had urged her to persuade Ryan to bring Sophia to my parents, while I received appropriate treatment for my mental health issues. My mother expressed concern for Sophia's safety and provided documentation indicating my inability to care for a newborn. Linda informed Ryan that the call was pointless, as she had been in daily contact with both of us since Sophia's birth. She said, "We seemed like normal new parents, tired but happy." She saw no evidence of the serious mental health issues my mother had spoken of. Ryan told his mother about what had happened to my family and about the pressure over Sophia's name. Linda said she was surprised by my family's behavior and wanted to help us in any way she could. She offered to come and stay with us if we needed any additional support. The next morning, we discovered that my mother had been calling Ryan's colleagues and my former colleagues, telling people that I was going through a mental health crisis and that we needed the help of friends and family. Several people contacted Ryan to see if there was anything they could do to help us during this terrible time. Ryan contacted his HR department to report that someone was spreading false information about our family's circumstances. His manager was understanding and stated that they would not take any action based on the phone calls they received. However, Ryan was concerned about how these calls could damage his professional reputation. I realized that my family was waging a campaign to undermine my legitimacy as a mother. They were no longer simply pestering me with Sophia's name. They were aggressively trying to convince others that I was mentally ill and incapable of caring for my child. Ryan and I decided we needed legal advice. We contacted Mr. Alvarez, a family law attorney specializing in grandparental rights disputes. We wanted to know what legal options my family had and how we could protect ourselves and Sophia from further harassment. Mr. Alvarez stated that the rules regarding grandparental rights vary by state, but in most cases, grandparents cannot obtain custody or visitation rights unless they can prove the parents are unfit or there are exceptional circumstances, such as the death of a parent. He stated that my family would need compelling evidence of neglect or abuse to successfully challenge my parental rights. However, he warned us that false reports to social services could have serious consequences, even if they are found to be unfounded. He suggested that we document any confrontations with my family members and keep track of their attempts to interfere with our parenting decisions. We decided to send a cease and desist letter to my parents, Teresa, and my cousin Nathan. The letter stated that they were no longer allowed in our home without an invitation and that they should refrain from contacting Ryan's family members, employers, and social services with false information about our family's status. The letter also stated that we were prepared to seek a restraining order if the harassment continued. Mr. Alvarez stated that having this letter would help prove a pattern of inappropriate behavior if we needed to take further legal action. 3 days after we sent the letter, my brother Liam called me. He added that our parents were upset by the legal letter and felt I was punishing them for caring for me and Sophia. He said they were just trying to help and that I was overreacting to their concerns. Liam explained that our parents loved me and wanted to be a part of Sophia's life. He suggested that if I agreed to compromise on the name, things would return to normal and we could be a happy family again. He suggested that I use Eleanor as Sophia's middle name instead of Grace. I told Liam it wasn't just about the name anymore. I mentioned how my parents had misrepresented my mental health and lied to everyone in our professional and personal lives about our family circumstances. I told them their actions had crossed a line and I couldn't trust them around Sophia. Liam denied knowing about the phone calls to social services or Ryan's work. He claimed our parents had told him they were simply concerned about me and wanted to make sure Sophia was properly cared for. He said he would talk to them about stepping back and giving us space. However, the next day, my mother left a voicemail on our home phone. She said the legal letter demonstrated that I wasn't thinking clearly and that Ryan was influencing my judgment. She said Eleanor would be heartbroken to learn that her great-granddaughter was being kept from the family members who loved her. She said they would not give up their relationship with their granddaughter, Eleanor, and that they would find a way to ensure Sophia knew her family lineage, even if I was determined to cut them out of our lives. This message made it clear that sending a legal letter hadn't solved any problems. My family remained convinced that they were the victims in this situation and that I was acting inappropriately. They continued to call Sophia by the wrong name and devised ways to intrude into our lives. Ryan and I knew we would need more legal protection if we wanted to protect our family from continued harassment. Update 2. My last update was 3 months ago, when my family bullied us for naming our daughter Sophia and spread misinformation about my mental health. Things quickly escalated after that, and I feel compelled to share what happened in the hopes it will be helpful to others facing legal issues within their families. Sophia and I were at a routine pediatric appointment when my mother, father, and Aunt Teresa arrived at the waiting room. They somehow found out about the appointment and decided to come without notifying us. My mother approached me and said she had thought about everything that had happened and wanted to apologize for any misunderstandings. She said family was more important than arguments and that she hoped we could work things out for Sophia's sake. I held Sophia and tried to speak quietly because we were in a public place with other families. I told my mother that she couldn't just show up for medical appointments without permission and that we were asking for time to sort things out. My father argued that they had rights as grandparents and should be involved in key decisions regarding Sophia's health. He said they had experience raising children and that their advice could be beneficial for Sophia's well-being. Teresa filmed Sophia with her phone while my parents talked to me. When I asked her to stop, she explained that she wanted to document Sophia's growth since they last saw her. She said my mother was upset she couldn't be there to monitor her granddaughter's development during those critical first months. The pediatrician's nurse called us to the appointment, and my family tried to tag along. I informed the nurse that Ryan and I were Sophia's parents, and that no one else was invited to the medical appointment. The nurse said only the parents could attend unless we provided written permission for others to attend. My mother thought this was ridiculous and that grandparents should automatically be informed about their granddaughter's health. She said she had attended all her other grandchildren's medical appointments and that I was being harsh by excluding her. The nurse asked my mother to wait in the lobby and offered to speak with us after the appointment if we agreed. My mother said she would wait but seemed angry about having to leave. During Sophia's examination, the Dr. Singh, asked about any changes in the family situation since the last visit. I informed him of my family's unwanted visit and the constant pressure we had been experiencing regarding Sophia's name and their role in her care. Dr. Singh reported that a week earlier, he had received a phone call from someone claiming to be Sophia's grandmother. The caller had detailed concerns about Sophia's weight gain, feeding schedule, and developmental milestones. She also asked if there were any concerns about Sophia's parents' ability to provide adequate care. Dr. Singh stated that he didn't provide any information during the phone call due to privacy restrictions, but he did record the call in Sophia's medical record. He said it was unusual for family members to call a pediatrician's office without the parents' knowledge or approval. He asked if we would like him to add a note to Sophia's file limiting who could receive information about her care. We agreed and asked him to ensure that only Ryan and I could receive Sophia's medical information or schedule appointments with her. When we left the office, my family was still waiting in the lobby. My mother asked how Sophia was doing and whether she was meeting all her developmental milestones. When I mentioned that the appointment had gone well, she asked for specific information regarding Sophia's weight and height. I informed her that Sophia's medical information was confidential and that we didn't want to share it with extended family. My father claimed that secrecy was a sign that something was wrong and that we were hiding Sophia's health or developmental issues. Teresa said she had raised 5 children and could tell if Sophia was doing well just by looking at her. She noted that Sophia looked smaller than she should be for her age and that we might not be feeding her properly. This conversation took place in front of other families with small children, and I saw them looking at us. Sophia began to cry, most likely because she sensed the tension in the room. I tried to calm her down while my family discussed their concerns. My mother reached out to Sophia and explained that she knew how to soothe babies because she had grandchildren. When I stepped back to prevent her from taking Sophia, she accused me of being anxious and overprotective. Ryan arrived at the pediatrician's office just as this argument was raging. He was parking his car and didn't realize my family was there until he walked into the foyer. Realizing what was happening, he immediately approached my family and asked them to leave us alone. My father claimed Ryan was the problem and that he was turning me against my own family. He said that before Ryan, I had always respected family ties and traditions. He said Ryan's influence was making me selfish and ungrateful. Ryan claimed we had asked for space and that attending medical appointments violated previously established boundaries. He said that if they continued to harass us in public, we would have no choice but to contact law enforcement. My mother began to cry and expressed her desire to be a part of her granddaughter's life. She declared that she had dreamed of being a grandmother for years, and that I was depriving her of the opportunity to build a relationship with Sophia. Other people in the waiting room were undoubtedly watching the situation unfold. The receptionist came over and asked if there was a problem that needed to be addressed. Ryan explained that we were leaving and that the others weren't with us. As we approached the exit, Teresa announced that they knew where we lived and were determined to have a relationship with Eleanor. Despite our numerous corrections, she continued to refer to Sophia's name as my grandmother's. That evening, Ryan and I called our attorney, Mr. Alvarez, to tell him what had happened at the pediatrician's office. He argued that showing up at medical appointments could be considered stalking or harassment, especially since we had already received a cease and desist letter. Mr. Alvarez stated that we had sufficient evidence to file for a temporary restraining order. He said we would have to go to court and provide evidence of harassment, such as false social service reports, unauthorized home and workplace visits, and confrontations at medical appointments. He stated that if the judge granted a temporary restraining order, my family members would be legally obligated to stay away from us, our home, Sophia's preschool, our workplaces, and all medical appointments. Violating the restraining order would result in arrest and criminal penalties. 3 days later, we filed for a restraining order against my mother, father, and Aunt Teresa. A hearing was scheduled for the following week. Mr. Doctor Alvarez stated that my family would be notified of the court date and could bring their own lawyer if they wished to contest our motion. The day before the hearing, my brother Liam called me. He stated that our parents had asked him to be a witness for the prosecution at the hearing. He explained that they wanted him to testify about how wonderful our family has always been and how much they love Sophia. Liam expressed confusion about the legal situation, as our parents had told him we were being unreasonable. They claimed that all they wanted was a normal grandparental relationship with Sophia and that we were using the court system to punish them for being overprotective. I told Liam everything that had happened over the past few months, including the false social services reports, the harassment at Ryan's workplace, and the confrontation at Sophia's medical exam. Liam claimed that our parents hadn't told him about most of these incidents. Liam stated that he didn't want to take sides in the legal dispute between me and my parents. He said he loved us all and hoped we could resolve our differences without the involvement of courts or lawyers. He decided not to appear at the hearing as a witness for either side. Mr. Alvarez presented evidence of my family's harassment at the restraining order hearing, including phone records, text messages, photographs of unauthorized visits, and documentation from the hospital social worker and pediatric ward. He also heard voicemails recorded by my mother, who used the name Eleanor for Sophia, and threatened to find ways to force her into a relationship. My parents appeared at the hearing without a lawyer. When the judge asked if they would like to respond to our restraining order petition, my father explained that they were simply loving grandparents being separated from their granddaughter by their overbearing son-in-law. My mother expressed concern for Sophia's well-being, citing postpartum depression and unpredictable decisions. She claimed they only notified social services because they genuinely feared Sophia wasn't receiving adequate care. The judge reviewed all the materials and concluded that the pattern of behavior outlined in our petition constituted clear stalking. She stated that grandparents have no right to force relationships with their grandchildren or interfere with their parents' medical and childcare decisions. The judge issued a 1-year restraining order against my mother, father, and Aunt Teresa. The order prohibited them from contacting us directly or indirectly, visiting our homes or workplaces, attending Sophia's medical examinations, or filing false reports with any government agencies. The judge also ordered my family to pay our legal fees, as she determined that their behavior was intentionally disruptive and that they had ignored our previous requests to respect our boundaries. After the hearing, my mother approached me in the courthouse. The bailiff quickly intervened, reminding her that the restraining order was now in effect and that she was to stay away from us. My father argued with the bailiff about whether they could speak with us again to present their side of the story. Mr. Alvarez escorted us out of the courthouse through a different exit to prevent further conflict. He stated that violations of the restraining order are taken very seriously by law enforcement, and that we should immediately contact the police if any members of my family attempt to contact us. 2 weeks after the restraining order was issued, we received a letter from another attorney representing my parents. The letter stated that they were considering filing a lawsuit for visitation rights with their grandparents and that they believed the restraining order was based on inaccurate information. Mr. Alvarez wrote to their attorney, stating that any attempt to seek visitation rights under the current restraining order would be considered harassment and could result in further legal consequences. He also stated that our documentation of their actions would be useful evidence in any future legal proceedings. Since then, we have had no direct contact with my parents or Aunt Teresa. Liam contacts me occasionally, but says our parents are upset that Sophia has been isolated from us. He claims they spend most of their time discussing how unfair the legal system is and how Ryan has poisoned my mind against my own family. Sophia is now 6 months old and growing well. She is meeting all her developmental milestones and is a happy, healthy child. Ryan and I have been able to focus on our new roles as parents without the constant burden of family harassment. The restraining order is 6 months away from expiring, and we intend to seek an extension if any contact attempts are made before it expires. Mr. Alvarez stated that a documented history of harassment will facilitate obtaining additional protections, if needed. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update on the restraining order against my parents and Aunt Teresa. Sophia is now 1 year old, and I wanted to share how things ultimately resolved after the situation took an unexpected turn. The restraining order was set to expire in December, and Ryan and I intended to seek an extension. We hadn't heard from my family since the court hearing, but Liam mentioned that our parents were still discussing trying to see Sophia after the legal restrictions were lifted. In November, something happened that changed everything. Liam called and explained that he had something important to tell me about our family. He explained that he'd been rummaging through old boxes in our parents' basement to help them prepare for their planned move to a smaller house. Liam discovered a collection of papers and documents belonging to our grandmother, Eleanor. The box contained letters, diary entries, and medical records that our parents had saved after Eleanor's death. Liam stated that after studying these records, he now understood why I had such unpleasant memories of Eleanor. The documents were letters Eleanor wrote to her sister, Beatrice, complaining about having to babysit Liam and me. Eleanor considered us difficult and spoiled children who needed strict discipline to learn good behavior. Eleanor detailed the punishments she administered, such as locking us in the basement and depriving us of food. She described these tactics as if they were standard parenting methods that our parents were too lenient to implement themselves. She lamented that our parents had spoiled us and that someone needed to teach us respect. Liam also discovered diary entries in which Eleanor expressed her hatred of children in general. She described babysitting as hard work and hated spending weekends dealing with ungrateful grandchildren. She described Liam and me in harsh terms, claiming we were proof that modern parents have no idea how to properly raise children. The most chilling entries were Eleanor's notes about her interactions with other grandchildren in our extended family. Liam stated that after reading these articles, he felt uncomfortable with our family's portrayal of Eleanor as a doting grandmother. Liam stated that after reading these articles, he felt uncomfortable with our family's portrayal of Eleanor as a doting grandmother. He claimed the evidence clearly indicated Eleanor was abusive, and that our parents either didn't know about it or chose to ignore it. Liam presented these documents to his parents and confronted them about Eleanor's actions. According to Liam, my mother initially tried to defend Eleanor, claiming the letters and diary entries were taken out of context. She claimed Eleanor belonged to a different generation, and her methods of punishment were typical of the time. Our father was deeply upset by what Liam discovered. He stated that he believed Eleanor had been overly strict with us, but he trusted our mother's judgment in leaving us with her. He stated that if he had known about Eleanor's punishments, he would not have allowed her to babysit. Liam stated that our parents had argued for days about the documents and their impact on our family's status. Our mother was unwilling to admit that Eleanor had done anything wrong. as that would have meant that her entire campaign to name Sophia after Eleanor had been based on honoring a cruel man. Our father finally declared that they needed to come to terms with the reality regarding Eleanor, and that they owed me an apology for insisting on using her name. He noted that if Eleanor had treated Liam and me as described in the documents, my refusal to honor her memory would make perfect sense. 2 weeks later, Liam called to say that our parents wanted to meet with Ryan and me to discuss the issue. He stated that they were willing to admit they had been wrong about Eleanor, and that they wanted to apologize for everything that had happened over the past year. Liam stated that our parents understood why we had obtained the restraining order, and that they had no intention of challenging the legal restrictions. He stated that they simply wanted the opportunity to convey their findings and see if there was any prospect of repairing our relationship. Ryan and I discussed whether we should agree to meet with our parents. We both doubted that one conversation could repair all the damage done to our family relationship. We also feared that this could be another attempt at manipulation to gain access to Sophia. We agreed to meet with our parents in a neutral location in the presence of our lawyer, Mr. Alvarez. We agreed to meet in his office so that we could have legal recourse if the conversation went wrong. Liam decided to attend the meeting as a mediator, helping everyone focus on resolving the issues. At the meeting, our parents brought copies of the documents Liam had discovered in Eleanor's files. Our mother was clearly concerned, but acknowledged that the evidence showed that Eleanor had mistreated Liam and me. She claimed to have idealized her memories of Eleanor and didn't want to think that her mother could have been cruel. Our father apologized for his participation in the pressure campaign over Sophia's name. He claimed to have trusted our mother's judgment of Eleanor without personally investigating the matter. He explained that if he had listened to my concerns about Eleanor from the start, the entire issue could have been avoided. Our mother's apology was more difficult for her. She explained that she had been so focused on upholding family tradition that she had rejected my love for Eleanor. She claimed that the discovery of the tapes forced her to confront the reality that her mother had harmed her grandchildren and failed to protect us. She also apologized for filing false reports with social services and for harassing Ryan's family and our employer. She stated that she had convinced herself that we were making terrible decisions regarding Sophia's care. But now she understands that she tried to control our parenting choices because she couldn't accept that we were independent adults. Mr. Doctor, Alvarez asked about our parents' expectations from this meeting and what improvements they were willing to make going forward. Our father explained that they understood that we might never want a close relationship with them again, but they hoped we would consider allowing supervised visits with Sophia in the future. Our mother stated that she wanted to support our decision regarding Sophia's name and would stop calling her Eleanor. She understood why the name upset me, and that she should have listened when I initially expressed my concerns about my grandmother. Ryan asked our parents what they planned to do about Aunt Teresa, who had been one of the most aggressive participants in the harassment campaign. Our father explained that Teresa was acting on information from our mother and that they would update her on the current situation. Our mother predicted that Teresa would have a hard time accepting the truth about Eleanor because she idealized her memories of our grandmother. She stated that they would inform Teresa that any further harassment of our family would damage her relationship with them. Liam suggested a cautious approach to rebuilding family ties. He suggested that our parents send Sophia cards or letters on holidays and birthdays, without expecting an immediate response from us. He stated that if they could consistently respect our boundaries over time, we could consider allowing limited communication in the future. Ryan and I agreed that we needed time to consider whether we wanted to rebuild our relationship with our parents. We stated that the restraining order would remain in effect until it expired, and that any future communication would have to adhere to strict guidelines we would establish. We also suggested that our parents apologize to other family members who had been harmed by the pressure campaign against us regarding Sophia's name. When our parents asked them to choose sides in the battle, several of our relatives found themselves in an awkward position. Our mother decided to contact Ryan's mother, Linda, and apologized for spreading misinformation about my mental health. She stated that she would explain that her concerns were based on incorrect assumptions and that she apologized for the stress she had caused Ryan's family. The discussion concluded with our parents agreeing to respect the remainder of the restraining order and to wait for us to contact them if we decided to try to repair our relationship. Mr. Alvarez said he would prepare a written agreement outlining what had been discussed so that everyone understood future expectations. After the meeting, Ryan and I spent several weeks discussing whether to give our parents another chance. We both felt their apologies were sincere, and that discovering the truth about Eleanor was a turning point for them. We agreed to allow limited contact until the restraining order expired. We agreed that our parents could send Sophia cards for birthdays and holidays, and call us briefly once a month. We stated that any future in-person visits would have to be scheduled in advance and would initially be supervised by Liam. When the restraining order expired in December, our parents sent Sophia a Christmas card with a simple message wishing her well and expressing their intention to be a part of her life one day. They offered a small gift, but didn't ask for a reply or visit. We've spoken with our parents on the phone several times over the past few months. The calls were polite but awkward, as we all tried to figure out how to communicate after what had happened. Our parents are interested in Sophia's progress and update us on their own lives, but they avoid discussing old issues. We allowed our parents to see Sophia for the first time since her birth in March. The visit lasted 2 hours and took place at Liam's house under his supervision. Our parents were clearly frightened and excited to see Sophia, but they respected all the boundaries we set, including no photos and no interference in our parenting decisions. Sophia is now 15 months old, walking and beginning to speak. During the visit, she was shy with our parents, which was understandable, considering she had never met them before. Our parents remained patient and did not try to force interactions with her. Our relationship with our parents remains very limited and fragile. We are starting cautiously because we don't want Sophia to be subjected to family drama if our parents resume their previous overbearing behavior. The trust that was shattered during the name dispute will take years to rebuild, if it's ever restored. Teresa hasn't participated in any of the reconciliation initiatives. According to Liam, she was extremely upset when our parents told her about the documents they discovered regarding Eleanor. She accused our parents of distorting Eleanor's memory and refused to acknowledge Eleanor's abuse of her grandchildren. Teresa apparently told other distant relatives that our parents were lying about Eleanor to please us, and that the entire family was falling apart because people no longer respected their elders. Liam stated that Teresa's reaction helped our parents understand how they thought about family loyalty before learning the truth about Eleanor. Looking back on this situation, I believe the most important lesson is that family traditions and bonds should not be sacrificed to protect children from harm. My parents were so committed to maintaining their romanticized image of Eleanor that they were willing to ignore my accusations of abuse and punish me when I refused to honor her memory. The legal system ultimately protected Sophia and our family from further persecution. However, for my parents to accept that my views on her were justified, it took compelling evidence of Eleanor's abusive behavior. I wish they'd listened to me from the start, rather than demanding proof that my grandmother documented her own child abuse. Sophia will grow up knowing her grandparents, but their bond will be different than it would have been had there been no disagreement. My parents will have to earn their place in her life, not expect instant respect because of their family status. The biggest positive is that this situation has strengthened my bond with Ryan and shown that we can successfully protect our family when necessary. We've learned to set boundaries, seek legal help when necessary, and put our child's well-being above family unity. Sophia's full name is Sophia Grace, and that's what everyone calls her now. She will never have to bear the name of the one who harmed her mother. And she will grow up in a family that values her safety and well-being over harmful traditions.